He was once worth over $13 billion, often cited as the richest black man in the world, owner of Sweden's biggest oil company, the economic king of Ethiopia. Then, he disappeared. Not dead, not bankrupt, just gone from the rankings. This is the story of the billionaire who lost his freedom but kept his empire. Mohammed Hussein Al-Amoud is not a name you'll hear at Davos cocktail parties. He doesn't post on social media, he doesn't give TED Talks, but at his peak, he controlled more of Sweden's energy infrastructure than most Swedish families. He controlled Ethiopia's most critical gold operations, and he moved between Riyadh's palaces and Stockholm's boardrooms, like most of us move between rooms in our house. Today, Forbes doesn't rank him. Bloomberg estimates somewhere around $5 to $6 billion. But here's the thing, his refineries in Sweden are still running. His gold mines in Ethiopia are still producing. His hotels are still hosting diplomats. So, where did the man go? This isn't a rags to riches story. This isn't even a riches to rags story. This is something stranger. This is an insider-outsider story. And that duality, that's exactly what made him powerful. And that's exactly what made him vulnerable. Let me show you what I mean. First, let's clear up a myth that follows Al-Amoud everywhere. He was not a refugee. I've seen this repeated in articles, documentaries, even business school case studies. The narrative goes, poor Ethiopian boy flees to Saudi Arabia, builds empire against all odds. It's compelling, it's wrong. The truth is more interesting. Mohammed Al-Amoud was born in 1946 in Ethiopia, specifically to a wealthy Hadramay father. The Hadramays are a diaspora community from what's now Yemen and Saudi Arabia, known for centuries as traders, merchants and bridge builders across the Indian Ocean world. His father was not struggling, his mother was Ethiopian, and young Mohammed grew up in a household that spoke Arabic at dinner and Amharic in the streets. As a teenager, he moved to Saudi Arabia to live with his father's family. He eventually gained Saudi citizenship. But here's what matters. He never fully belonged to just one world. In Saudi Arabia, his Ethiopian heritage made him different. He carried Africa in his face, in his mother's lineage, in the way he understood markets that Gulf investors saw as too risky, too chaotic. In Ethiopia, his Saudi money and connections made him not just wealthy, but essential. He could open doors in Riyadh that even Ethiopian ministers couldn't. So he became a human bridge, a capital conduit between the Gulf and the Horn of Africa. And he understood something most investors miss. Identity can be leverage. Being between meant he could translate, culturally, financially, politically. He wasn't navigating two worlds. He was creating a third space where billion-dollar deals happened that neither world could do alone. That's not hustle. That's strategic positioning at birth. Al-Amoud operates through something called MIDROC. It stands for Mohammed International Development Research and Organization Companies. Terrible name. Incredible empire. And here's where it gets fascinating, because his empire exists in two places that should have nothing to do with each other: Sweden and Ethiopia, ice and dust. Let's start with the ice. Picture this. It's the 1990s. A Saudi-Ethiopian businessman walks into Sweden, one of the most progressive, secular, egalitarian countries on earth, and says, "I'd like to buy your largest fuel company." And somehow, he does it. Preem, Sweden's biggest fuel company, 2 massive refineries in Lysekil and Gothenburg, over 500 gas stations blanketing the country, millions of Swedes filling up their Volvos with fuel from a company owned by a Muslim billionaire most of them have never heard of. Think about the optics. Think about the trust required. This isn't just business. This is a Muslim investor becoming one of the largest foreign stakeholders in a Nordic nation that prides itself on transparency and progressive values. And he didn't just buy it and extract, he ran it, grew it, and recently pivoted Preem toward renewable fuels to meet Sweden's green standards. Now let's travel south, way south. While Sweden gave him steady cash flow, Ethiopia gave him something else: legacy. He built the Sheraton Addis. Not just a hotel, but what people call a city within a city. Diplomats, heads of state, business moguls. If you're doing serious business in Ethiopia, you're probably doing it in a building Al-Amoud owns. He controls the Lega gold mine, the largest in the country. He built L4A Agro Industries, massive livestock operations exporting to the Middle East. He controls cement, steel, construction supply chains. Here's the contrast. Western investors looked at 1990s Ethiopia and saw risk, political instability, corruption. Al-Amoud saw something else. He saw a country that his mother came from, that needed capital. Observers call this patriotic capitalism. I call it playing the long game when everyone else is day trading. Between 2012 and 2014, his net worth hit roughly $13.5 billion. Forbes ranked him. Bloomberg tracked him. But here's what nobody talks about when you're worth that much. Proximity becomes a prison. Al-Amoud wasn't just close to power in Saudi Arabia. He was woven into it. In some systems, that's the greatest advantage you can have, until the system changes the rules. November 2017. Saudi Arabia launches an anti-corruption purge. Dozens of princes, businessmen, and officials are detained, not in a prison, in the Ritz-Carlton Riyadh. Luxury suites turned into holding cells. Among them, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal and Mohammed Hussein Al-Amoud. He would stay there for 14 months, over 400 days, longer than almost anyone else. Think about that. You have $13 billion. You own refineries in Sweden, gold mines in Ethiopia, and none of it can buy you a walk outside. Here's the paradox that should break your brain. While Al-Amoud was locked inside that hotel, his companies kept running. Swedish workers kept refining fuel. Ethiopian miners kept extracting gold. His freedom was gone, but his empire didn't stop. Eventually, in January 2019, he was released. The government announced a settlement. No details, just release. Since 2019, Mohammed Al-Amoud has become what I call a ghost billionaire. He's not dead, he's not broke, he's just not here. Forbes removed him from their rankings because they couldn't verify which assets he transferred to the state. But Preem is still operating. His Ethiopian assets are still central to the economy. The empire runs, the man hides. So what is this? Strategic retreat? Forced invisibility? Or something deeper? Okay, let's pause the story for a moment. Because if you're watching this channel, you're not just here for the drama, you're here to extract something useful. So let me pull out 4 principles from Al-Amoud's story that matter whether you're building a billion-dollar empire or just trying to navigate your career, your investments, or your life. Lesson 1. Power is contextual. Al-Amoud's wealth worked completely differently in Sweden than it did in Saudi Arabia. In Sweden, his billions bought him respect, infrastructure, steady returns, long-term contracts. The Swedes didn't care about his personal life or his political connections. They cared that he ran Preem efficiently and met environmental standards. In Saudi Arabia, his billions bought him access, a seat at the table, proximity to power. But that proximity came with an invisible price tag: conditional sovereignty. And when the rules changed in 2017, all that access became a liability overnight. Here's the principle: wealth doesn't behave the same everywhere. If your fortune depends on being close to power, you're not really a billionaire. You're a well-compensated hostage. And political risk? It's invisible until the day it isn't. This applies to you too. Maybe you're not dealing with crown princes, but ask yourself, where does my leverage actually come from? Is it skills I own or access I'm borrowing? Because borrowed power disappears the moment the lender changes their mind. Lesson 2. Identity can be leverage. Most people see not fully belonging as a disadvantage. You're too African for the Arabs, too Arab for the Africans, too foreign for the Swedes. Al-Amoud flipped that completely. He was Saudi enough to access Gulf capital, Ethiopian enough to be trusted in Addis Ababa, Hadrami enough to navigate diaspora networks across 3 continents, and sophisticated enough to win over Swedish regulators. He didn't pick a lane, he became the lane. Cultural fluency isn't just a nice-to-have skill, it compounds capital. It opens doors that money alone can't buy. Think about the deals he could make that no one else could. A Swedish pension fund wants exposure to African commodities but doesn't trust the governance. Who do they call? The guy who owns Sweden's biggest fuel company and Ethiopia's biggest gold mine. An Ethiopian government needs Gulf investment but doesn't have relationships. Who bridges that gap? The guy who speaks Arabic at breakfast and Amharic at lunch. So, if you feel like you're between worlds, between industries, cultures, generations, whatever, don't try to pick one. Learn to operate in the overlap. That's where the opportunities are that other people can't see. Lesson 3. Control beats ownership. Here's the part that should rewire how you think about wealth. Al-Amoud may have lost $8 billion on paper. Forbes removed him from the rankings. Bloomberg slashed his net worth. By conventional metrics, he got destroyed. But his refineries? Still refining. His mines? Still mining. His hotels? Still hosting heads of state. See the difference? Real power isn't visibility. It's operational continuity. You can lose your ranking, your freedom, even your public identity. But if the systems you built keep running without you in the spotlight, you haven't lost. You've just gone quiet. This is why smart operators build systems, not empires dependent on their presence. Compare Al-Amoud to billionaires who got wiped out completely. The difference? They built wealth around themselves. He built it around operations that could survive his absence. Lesson: stop optimizing for credit. Start optimizing for continuity. Because when the storm hits, and it will hit, what survives isn't your net worth. It's what keeps running when you can't. Lesson 4. Tawakkul. Under pressure. Now here's the hardest lesson. And it's not a business lesson. It's a human one. Imagine you're Mohammed Al-Amoud. It's day 200 inside the Ritz-Carlton. You've got $13 billion. You've built an empire across 3 continents. You've met with presidents, kings, prime ministers, and none of it can buy you a walk outside. What do you do when every strategy has failed? When money doesn't work? When connections don't work? When lawyers can't help you? In Islamic tradition, there's a concept called tawakkul. It means reliance on God after you've done everything you can do. It's not passivity. It's not giving up. It's the recognition that there's a point where control ends and acceptance begins. And maybe, just maybe, those 14 months taught Al-Amoud something most billionaires never learn. That power is conditional. That wealth is not sovereignty. That sometimes the only move left is surrender. Not surrender of purpose, surrender of ego. And when he came out, he didn't run back to the spotlight. He didn't write a book. He didn't give interviews defending himself. He just let the work speak. Because here's the truth. If what you built has real value, it doesn't need you to narrate it. It just needs to keep working. And speaking of what he built, let's talk about what Al-Amoud did with his wealth when he had it. He donated millions of dollars to King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah for breast cancer research. They named an entire center after him. the Sheikh Mohammed Hussein Al-Amoud. Center of Excellence in Breast Cancer, one of the leading cancer research facilities in the Middle East. At King Saud University in Riyadh, he funded the Sheikh Mohammed Hussein Al-Amoud Chair for Water Research. Critical work in a region where water scarcity is an existential threat. In Ethiopia, he built hospitals and infrastructure that the government couldn't afford. Roads, schools, medical facilities in areas that Western investors wouldn't even visit. He was a major donor to the Clinton Foundation. Controversial, sure, but it shows the level he was operating at globally. We're talking tens of millions of dollars flowing into global health initiatives, economic development programs across Africa. Here's the frame I want you to hold. He invested where returns were uncertain, but impact was guaranteed. That's not charity. That's what observers call patriotic capitalism. That's putting money where your identity lives. He didn't just extract wealth from Ethiopia. He circulated it. He built things that would outlast him. And maybe that's why, even in silence, even after detention, even after billions lost, he's still respected in Addis Ababa. Still seen as someone who showed up when it mattered. Someone who didn't just take. He gave back. So, let's come back to where we started. The mystery. The disappearance. Mohammed Hussein Al-Amoud didn't vanish because he failed. He didn't disappear because he went bankrupt or lost his mind. He disappeared because he learned something that most billionaires spend their entire lives avoiding. That power is contextual. In Sweden, his billions were protected by rule of law. In Saudi Arabia, they were conditional on favor. Same money, different rules. And when the rules changed, proximity became a prison. But here's what the rankings miss. His identity, that thing that made him not quite Saudi, not quite Ethiopian, not quite Swedish, that wasn't a weakness. That was the whole strategy. He became a bridge when everyone else was building walls. And that's how he moved billions across borders that others couldn't even see. And when everything fell apart, when he lost his freedom, when Forbes erased his name, when the world assumed he was finished, his refineries kept refining, his mines kept producing, his systems kept running, because he built for continuity, not credit. He optimized for systems that could survive without him in the spotlight. And that's why today, even though you can't find him on a list, you can still buy fuel from his company. You can still stay in his hotels. You can still see his fingerprints on 2 continents. But maybe the deepest lesson is this. After 14 months in that golden cage, he came out different. Not broken, not bitter, just quiet. He stopped chasing visibility. He let go of the ego that needs to be seen, ranked, celebrated. That's tawakkul. That's what happens when you surrender control of the outcome and trust that if your work has purpose, it doesn't need your narration. So here's what I want you to take from this. The next time you see a Forbes list, ask yourself, who's not on it? And more importantly, why? Because sometimes the most powerful people are the ones who've learned that silence is a strategy, not a surrender. Al-Amoud is still out there, still building, still operating, still influencing economies across 3 continents. You just can't Google him. And maybe that's exactly how he wants it. The rankings captured his rise, but they'll never capture his legacy, because legacy isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in what remains when the spotlight moves on. If this story changed how you think about success, power, or purpose, subscribe to Purpose and Billions, because the mainstream media will show you the rankings. We'll show you what the rankings can't measure. The psychology of wealth, the strategy behind empires, the faith that survives the fall. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.